I'm Corey Gibson. This is
Alvy Cater.
And this is 232 and
You.
This is the February edition, Alvy, and today we're really focusing on enrollment projections, RSP, etc. that we've talked about in years past. We have a new projection, and we know that this company's been working with us for now 3 years and has a couple more years of an agreement. So let's just dive in. So first question we're going to be asking, and people are wondering about, like, overall, what was the projection? What were the takeaways?
So the enrollment analysis and the projections were presented to the Board of Education at the February 3rd meeting. And I'd like to show you exactly the executive summary. So this is the big takeaway. And as you look at it, we are projected to increase student enrollment by only about 125 students over 5 years.
So that's down from the projections before, is that correct?
That's right. And so there are so many factors that go into this. And the other thing I wanted to show you is if you look at our 5-year projection, for the first time in a while, we might actually dip below 7,000 students in grades K through 12 before we actually see that increase. And we're going to be talking a lot about the factors that go into this today.
Let's just dive right in. What are the factors that might be constraining, so to speak, that enrollment growth?
We're going to be looking at birth rates. That's the biggest one. And Dr. Gibson, as you know, the birth rates in Kansas is impacting every school district, but here in Johnson County in particular. So as we take a look at this slide, what you're seeing is the number of live births in Johnson County. And then as you look at the blue vertical bar, that represents how many kindergarten students we had that particular year. So if we look at the first column, in the 2019-20 school year, we had 528 students. And as you move to the right and we approach the 2024-25 school year, you can see that we have declined in kindergarten enrollment this year at 415, and look how it corresponds to the number of live births in Johnson County. It's also declining. So that is a factor. The other thing that I want to show you, and this is all included in the enrollment analysis and projections, are just some observations and conclusions. I'm not going to touch on all of that, but here's the big one. In 2023, there were 523 less births in Johnson County than in 2014. And that's a 7.1% decrease over the past 10 years. And that is expected to continue into the future. And we're going to talk a little bit more about birth rates later in our discussion. But the next one that's really impacting why we're going to see a slower rate of growth is inventory. Now, I'm not expecting anyone to read this map. What this is saying is that in 2024, there was a slowdown in development. Only 113 residential units came online in 2024. Now, we do expect that to increase this year and next year, and we'll talk about how that could impact our student enrollment. The next thing that I want to share with you is this: affordability.
Right.
You have inventory, maybe not enough of it, but the big one is affordability. On this map, all we're going to ask you to do is look at the wonderful colors that we have, primarily the orange and the yellow. If you look at the yellow, that means homes with a median value of $300,000 to $400,000, and the orange represents homes that have a median value over $400,000. Wow. You see there's a lot of yellow and orange. The other thing that's affecting us is a lot of our neighborhoods are aging.
Right.
I mean, I'll use myself as an example. My wife and I have not relocated even though we're empty nesters. And as such, pockets of our community are aging. And so that inventory is not in the pipeline for families who want to move in. Correct.
So when we think about all these, and obviously there's a lot of factors, we're talking about birth rate changes, which, as you alluded to, is not just unique to DeSoto School District, but it's also found in Johnson County, statewide, and actually a national trend. But we also look at the regreening, so to speak. That's the term we're talking about when people move out of their home, when they're empty nesters and new families move in. Lots of contributions there. Obviously, the cost, right, of the affordability, interest rate impacts how much people can afford. So there's a lot of those factors. And then we're also talking about the inventory being built. The new inventory is not at the same level as this district has experienced 15,
That's exactly
20 years ago.
And a great illustration for that, Dr. Gibson, is if you look at our past enrollments by grade. We're just going to look at 2 columns. The very last one, those rows. So 2024-25, the first column, the number of kindergarten students we have this year, 415. But look at the number of juniors we have in high school, 629. And what we're seeing here is that we have, yes, some growth in the middle, but when our seniors graduate, we're not seeing enough growth to offset that gap. And then look at this. This is a graph inside the enrollment analysis that shows the number of kindergarten students and compared to our 12th grade class. The red vertical bar is kindergarten. The blue vertical bar would be our seniors. And look what happens over time. At about 2015-16, we begin to see that decrease in the number of kindergarten students compared to seniors. And as we move forward into the future, it's predicted to continue. So lower birth rates, that means we have to have families relocating into the district for us to have that enrollment growth.
Yeah. And so along with that is one of the things that was presented on Monday is that we are, quote, a destination district. So what does that mean?
So this is really great. And some of us know this, but this helps illustrate the fact that families want to be in USD 232, and that is contributed to all of you.
100%.
You care about our community, you care about our students, you care about our families, the customer service that you provide. No matter which role you have, we have families who are choosing to come here. And look at this graphic that we have for you. We have students who leave the district every year for a variety of reasons. We have students entering the district. So that's out migration and in migration. And look, our in migration exceeds the number of students who leave the district. So that means that families are choosing to come here. We have families who want to be here, but maybe have not found that affordable housing to come here. So this is a great news for us, is that we're seeing that growth, but is it enough to offset that senior class leaving us and the kindergarten class coming in?
So once again, going back to that last graphic, one of the things we saw was that senior class is a little bit larger in some cases than our kindergarten. And it's possible that was one, when they enter kindergarten, it was a larger class, and we've had that inward migration as their first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth.
So we are seeing growth in the cohorts.
Yes.
That's exactly right. So a great example of that is this year. When we started school in August and then we did the count day in September, we were down about 80 students.
Yeah.
As of today, since that time, we have grown over 60 students.
Right.
So that is the example of the in-migration.
Yeah, very good. So one of the things I think about, of course, we have inward migration, outward migration, but we also think about if I drive around our district, 100 square miles, there's not hardly any part of the district I don't see some dirt moving with new addition, new housing, multifamily. What might be the impact in our district in the future with all this growth, like dirt up being moved and new homes being built?
So this is really interesting. And for individuals who love data, this is another data set that's included in the enrollment analysis is when you look at inventory. And so what we have here is a slide that talks about the K-12 yield rate. So how many students are we getting out of single family homes and how many students do we see out of multifamily units? So this graphic shows from 2015-16, which is going to be the first column, all the way over to current. The red vertical bar represents the number of students per 100 single-family units. So we, in 2015-16, we saw about 63 students per 100 single-family homes. Look what happens as we move all the way to the right to the current school year. It's dropped to about 54 students per 100 single-family homes. That represents, one, lack of available housing, but we're aging, means families are staying put and not regreening in terms of neighborhoods and new families coming in. But what's really interesting is you look at the multifamily, this is the number of students per 100 multifamily units. It's pretty steady at about 26. Now, this is the average across the entire USD 232 school district. We might have pockets where one elementary school might see a higher yield rate in multifamily, for example. So again, this is the average district-wide, but we have seen a decrease in the number of students per single-family homes.
Gotcha.
The other thing that I want to show you is this. You talked about, it looks like we have a lot of development that's ready to go. I'm not expecting anyone to read this, but just look at the colors. And so if you look at the light shade of green, that represents a number of residential projects that are considered shovel ready. And we know that there are some developments already underway. So this is what's happening that could happen right now. The yellow represents the number of residential developments in the next 5 years.
Right.
The purple shaded area represents residential developments in the next 10 years. Here's the takeaway, Dr. Gibson. If you look at the current growth area, that means residential developments that are shovel ready, we have the potential to see 2,716 new units coming online. And that will impact our yield rate. The more inventory that's available, the more students that we'll see over time.
Very good.
The other thing that I want to share with you, Dr. Gibson, is schools to watch.
Right.
This is really important for us because with all of this data, you might ask, well, what's the next step?
Right. Right.
What's the next step for the Board of Education? What's the next step for us as a district administration team? We have to monitor this data. One thing we have to look at is Starset Elementary and Mill Creek Middle School. Those are the two schools to watch in terms of student enrollment over the next 5 years. As we look at capacity and shifting patterns, right now in the city of DeSoto, we know of 2 developers that are ready
Right now.
to begin work on single family units as well as some multifamily units. So more information to come on that hopefully later this year. So we have to monitor this. The next thing that we do is we're going to take all of this data and we have to begin work this month on looking at open enrollment. So not to go into a lot of detail, but open enrollment is the new non-resident student enrollment law, and we have to identify how many open seats will we make available to non-resident students to travel into the district to attend school.
Right.
And so as you can see, we'll probably have to really look at each grade level by
Each school
school.
building. Right, absolutely. And that could be different than last year, even though we don't think it's going to be a large number, it could be larger than last year is my prediction.
I would agree with you. This year we made available 34 open seats. I predict that we're going to see a larger number of open seats available.
But out of the 34 last year, about how many actually took us up on that offer, so to speak?
So as it turns out, only 5 took us up on the offer. We actually had some applicants rescind their request to attend school here.
And why was that? Well, I mean, what are the main factors of why people aren't just saying, hey, this is a district we want to come to, but what's the prohibitive?
I think the biggest factor for families who want to be here is the transportation.
Yeah, I agree.
Every single day, I'm taking my student and picking them up. Some families want to do that, but I think there's also a challenge of doing that every day from 25, 30 minutes away.
I would agree. Very good. Well, you did a great job of just explaining to us in a short amount of time all this report. We know the report's available on our website. Is
Yes.
that correct?
So the easiest way to find this is if you go to the Board of Education webpage, if you go to our Diligent Community portal and go to the February 3rd Board of Education meeting, and I've got that information on the bottom of your screen right now.
Very
And you'll be able to download the enrollment analysis and take a look at it.
Yeah, so if you're interested about your specific building in which you work, it does break it out by building of what the projection is 5 years and 10 years from now on that variance.
And if you have any questions, you can certainly ask, or if you can't find the enrollment analysis, just email me, Alvy Cater.
Very good. Well, thank you once again, Alvy. So once again, recap, enrollment still is projected to go up, although rare across the state of Kansas, just at a slower rate than maybe was estimated a year ago or 2 years ago.
And Dr. Gibson, the takeaway here is that can change in 2 years.
Absolutely. Lots of things can change. And so people often ask me like, well, what does enrollment really do? Well, obviously we've already talked about it. It impacts the number of students we have in our schools, but it also impacts funding, right? And then the number of students we're actually seeing and serving in our district. And speaking of serving, we proudly serve as district leaders, but we're also proud dads.
Absolutely.
And as we know, we end every single 232NU with a dad joke, because those never end, by the way.
Yes.
So you ready for this one?
Okay, I'm ready.
Which Super Bowl players can jump higher than the field goal post?
Okay, so I'm assuming you're talking about the bottom bar. I saw Travis Kelce
Oh, yeah,
do
he
that
went up,
once. He had to pay a fine. I'm going to say 3 of all the teams.
Actually, all of them, because field goal post cannot jump. Take care and go Chiefs.